Greetings, everyone. Did you know that the books of the Bible can teach us how to win with books and can help us on our publishing journey? Well, that's what today's Transformation Thursday is all about as we wrap up our book study of the book of Ruth. My name is Kamika Ruth Taylor. I am an entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling author of over 20 books. And my author journey was inspired by the book of Ruth. And this is week 9 of our 9-part study of the book of Ruth. And this is Transformation Thursday. It's all about sharing ideas to change the way we think so that we can change the way we live and to give us hope and encouragement. All right. So it's all about book studies. And so we're going to be looking today in the final episode at the book of Ruth and what can it teach us about publishing success, writing and publishing success. And I'm excited about it. In my book, Penny to Win, I talk about the Ruth authorship model. And this is the model that will help us to publish without breaking the bank. It's also the model that will help many first-time authors to win. And so I'm sure you want to hear, how could I eke out all of those things from Ruth? I am building my entrepreneurship business based on the book of Ruth. Not only is it like a life book, living out the principles there, but as it relates to directly publishing and writing tips and learning to publish without breaking the bank and leveraging books for greater impact and income for the glory of God. The book of Ruth is it. In fact, the Bible itself serves as a model for what we can do in publishing and for how we can win in publishing. And if you want to become the home of independent publishing, the Bible is a good example. And I'm sure you're like, what? Where is she going with this? But I'm absolutely serious. One of the things is that the Bible is, we were told and taught in school, it's a library of books, or it's an anthology. So it's made up of smaller books or several stories. In the Bible that we use in evangelical circles, there are 66 books. Of course, you know, there are other Bibles with more books. But essentially, these books are a blend. They are narratives, they are poetry, they are historical writings, and they are, prophetic writings and different things. But as you look at that, the books are in different categories. And one of the things is, and genres. When you are writing a book, you need to know what the genre is. You need to know what the categories what category you should place your book. Of course, the book could also be in multiple categories. So we look at fiction and non-fiction. Now, the Bible is considered to be non-fiction, but because of the incredible stories in there, many people don't believe some of these stories. People coming from the dead and all kind of things happen. People in their 80s having children. Those things really happen. And so there are many persons who are skeptical about the scriptures. So I try to write stories similar to what's in the Bible. And the book of Ruth is a memoir. It's a short book. And I find that stories sell. I find that stories have a lasting impact, your story. And so my first book was a memoir. It was my story, my own story, except that I wrote it. All right. The book of Ruth, the author is not known. Some think it's Samuel, but Ruth didn't write her story. Somebody else wrote her story. And so you don't have to write your story. That's a big tip. Somebody else can write it. So for this book here, The Voice, which is my latest book, this is actually my grandmother's memoir, which is just a part of our story. It's Grandma's Amazing Stories of Divine Guidance. It is a very small book, just about 10,000 words. All right. So it barely has a spine for me to put anything on, but I can put stuff. I could have still put the logo and my name and the book title on it, but it is very small. All right. But this is a Ruth-like book. It's a memoir. It is short and it is powerful. In Jamaica, we would say little but talawa. And when persons read this book, it impacts their life. I remember one reader sent me a video and she just started sharing her story of how this book encouraged her. In fact, the story of my grandmother is what is changing my life and causing me to level up my game. It's about building rock solid resilience. And Ruth is and hope amidst challenges. Ruth is similar. You want to have rock solid resilience. You want to have courage to move forward despite adversity. The book of Ruth is like that. And I was talking to somebody about a month or so ago, and he said, you know, people like to read stories about overcoming. And he wanted to encourage his wife to write her own story. And so my aim is to help us to turn our stories or the stories of our parents, grandparents, or business stories, whatever stories of overcoming, to turn them into published legacies. And you can do it in a short space of time, especially when it is a small book you want to write, especially if it's a short book. 10,000, I think 15,000 is ideal. But this works as well. You normally have to make the font a little bigger so that it have a little body. But 10,000 to 30,000 words is good. And on Amazon, that is called Kindle Short Reads. So you're talking about 90-minute reads. And it gives you a quick win because people are more likely to read off a short book than a long book, and they buy it and they just have it there. So it helps you with page reads. It helps you with read through, and people like short books. You can use them as marketing tools. You can use them to bring attention and awareness to a cause. And so the book of Ruth does that. It brings attention and awareness to the cause of widows. It brings attention and awareness to preparing for economic crisis. And you can use it for so many things. So the book of Ruth has 4 chapters. It's a very short book. And that has also, I began with Ruth because on this channel, we're mainly going to be looking at short books. So it's short book studies. Also, I encourage my authors to publish short books. The second author that I published for Dr. Delano Palmer, his book was over 100,000 words. So you're talking about 300 pages, whatever. It's a theological book. It's a textbook. No, it's easier for persons to buy textbooks like that. And typical novels are normally long, and people buy them. But I find that memoirs are it's time for us to tell our stories as Caribbean people and our true stories. The story of my grandmother so impacted me, maybe because she's somebody like me. And so if you are struggling to write, you can write a short story. You take one aspect of your life and you turn that into a story. My books are mainly story-centered. I use different aspects of my life to teach people how to win, to give them hope and encouragement. And I also have books for writers. And one of the benefits of writing short books, as we're learning from the book of Ruth, okay, they can be memorable, especially when it's your story. The impact continues. It is no less powerful than a big book. So the book of Ruth was written over 2,000 years ago, and we are still benefiting from it today. I am still being inspired. It is helping me in business and life. And look how long, I don't know this lady. In fact, the author of the book of Ruth is unknown. So you don't have to be a famous author for you to be an effective author, for your book to be effective. We don't know who wrote Ruth, but the author did an effective job. And there are people who, read this book, and those who understand literature much, much, much more than I do. I am not on that level, and they would testify that the book of Ruth is an excellent piece of writing. So you want to do your best in writing the story. In the book of Ruth, for example, in about 3 verses, they capture 10 years. Or in 1 chapter, they capture 10 years. So you have to know how to shorten and condense your story. Not everything that happens in your life needs to be told when you're writing your memoir. Only that which brings the message across. And that's what we see in the book of Ruth. So you must learn to condense the story just to bring out the point. And it seems as if the point in that story was to tell you about how the Davidic monarchy came about, or it's all about David. It's pointing to David and teach us about David's ancestors. But it's also a book that gives us hope and encouragement that we're not alone, that, in the ordinary things of life, God is at work. And so it's the same way that God can use your short book, your testimony, your story, when recorded. God can use that to bring people to himself, and it can be impacting lives long after you're dead. So we encourage you to write your story like how Ruth's story was written, or like my grandmother, she didn't write it, but I wrote it on her behalf, because the impact of that will go beyond your lifetime. And it opens doors. I'm doing a whole program, 9 weeks of study on the book of Ruth. So it can give people opportunities and ideas. You can, if you write it, you will teach it. That's what we get from it. On the publishing side, the smaller the book, if you're self-publishing, because this channel exists to give you self-publishing success tips and independent publishing tips, is that it is cheaper. Because when you break down the process, editing very often is where you spend a lot of money. So the editing, copy editing, or structural editing, there are different types of editing. Structural editing may be anywhere from maybe $30 to $60 per hour. Now, this would just be 90 minutes. That's an hour and a half or 2 hours. You wouldn't spend more than $60 or $100 for structural edit. If you are copy editing, it's anywhere between $10 and $25 per 1,000 words. So for a 10,000 word book or a 20,000 word book, you wouldn't be spending more than $200, or even at $30, you wouldn't be spending more, 30,000 words, you wouldn't be spending more than $300 on it. So you're able to publish for less than $1,000 if you keep the book short. And that's what I promote. Amazon Kindle has a genre. It's called Kindle Short Reads. And so you can put your book in Kindle Short Reads. Under 10,000, it will be small like this. And it also depends on the size that you use to print, because you could end up with a small book like this as well, like C.S. Lewis books. This is a 4x6. My book here, Penny to Win It. This looks a little thicker, but it's just about 10,000 words. And so you have to choose the book size carefully when you're planning to write short reads. But it gives you a quick win. It doesn't take long to write. So like this book took me about a month. Now, I do have the ability to write a book in 24 hours, literal 24 hours. I had another short book that we basically wrote it in 11 hours. And I told you my first book, I wrote it in 11 days, almost 68,000 words. But if you aim to keep it short, like the book of Ruth, you can keep your word count down. We say short between 10 and 30,000 words. 25,000 is ideal and can give you like a 150-page book. And it is still a win. So the story doesn't have to be long to be effective. That's what the book of Ruth is telling us. In terms of cost, when it is a smaller book and the word count is fewer, less word count, then your costs will also be reduced. You will have read through. So the book of Ruth is telling us that you don't have to write a big book for it to be effective. That even with a short story, it can be part of an anthology. So that's what the whole Bible tells us. So you could write a short story that maybe 5,000 or 10,000 words, and then it becomes part of an anthology. So similar to the Bible, you could team up with different authors to write your book, and that could make you write the book faster. And so your own story, when recorded, can make a difference. And so I am all about teaching you how to turn your story into a published book and published legacies. And you can check out my company, Bamboo Sparks. We offer premium publishing services there, where we find solutions for those who want to self-publish. Maybe you want to self-publish, pay to publish, which is primarily what we do in the Caribbean, but you still don't understand how to put the pieces together, and you want somebody to manage the process for you. We have our management deals with the done for you, where you don't even pay any money. We have a royalty share, and it's when we start selling books, and we help you to market and sell your first 100 or your first 1,000 books, and we recover expenses at that time, or done with you, where we have a payment plan and we work with you. You keep all your copyrights and all the royalties, depending on what you want. Or we have just a self-publishing Spark, where the different parts to publish the book, editing, cover design, the ISB, and all of those things, you can get that from us individually, and you take charge of it. But I'm saying that the smaller the book, it's easier. You could publish for less than $500 a small book, or less than $1,000, depending on how you choose to manage the process. And short books give that to you. Short books are also excellent marketing tool. A book gives you a voice. It's an excellent way to write your first book and to have a big win. And they're more affordable too, because you're not going to charge the regular price, and so more people may want to buy them from you. And so those are some of the things that the Book of Ruth is teaching us. Short books. Your book can be part of an anthology. In terms of your story, you could put it as part of a larger book. And it doesn't have to be long to be effective, and it can outlast you. Those are some of the tips that I just wanted to share with you as we learn from the Book of Ruth. You want to have your theme and everything, and you can have a big win with a small book. And so I practice the Ruth authorship model. I write books on behalf of others. So some person, they don't want to write. I have a program for that, the Rocket Writing Spark. So it's similar to ghostwriting. I call it guided writing, where I can help you to write the book if you don't want to write it. So we have a technique where you speak the book, we use your words, refine that. And there is that. You can go to bamboosparks.com for that. And it can be done in no time. That's exactly what I did with my grandmother's story. And I kept it short, like the Book of Ruth, because I know that it would be effective. And so the Book of Ruth is really about David's great grandmother and his whole family line. So here we have a love story, but it's the story of a family that has been chronicled. So you can turn your family story into a book and create what we call published legacies that continue to make money and impact lives and can spin off in many different things. You never know the impact your book will have on somebody and what insights they will gain from reading your story. The Book of Ruth has taught me so much. Right now, based on last week's episode, Better Than They Dreamed, I am now declaring over my life that my future is going to be better than I dreamed, all because of a small book and what I learned from it. So don't underestimate what can be done with a small book or a short book. And write your story, make it short, and it will still be impactful. You can also write for purpose and not prestige. We don't know the name of the author, but the book is still effective. Some of us, we want to be New York Times bestsellers, and we feel if our name is not known and if we don't get a traditional publishing deal, that our book won't be effective. We don't know who wrote Ruth, but the person wrote for purpose, not for prestige. And that's what sometimes you have to do with self-publishing. And another way can be bank over rank. The book can be helping you to make money and make a living. I make a living through my writing and my skills. My books are helping to sustain me, but I'm not a New York Times bestselling author. And long before I even recognized that I was a bestselling author, I was using my books to impact lives, preach, teach, start initiatives, support myself financially without a name. So you can write for purpose and profit and not necessarily for prestige. You don't have to be a Pulitzer Prize winner. Your name doesn't have to be known as the author for you to be effective. That's one of the lessons we're learning from the book of Ruth. And I just want to leave those with you, thoughts for you to shift perspective. It can still be a brand building book. It doesn't have to be thick. And I'm a living example. And my other authors, there are several authors in the Caribbean, I could name names, whose short books have activated them for greater things. Because when you write a book, you're either going to start something or it's going to expand that which already exists. So you start our scale. It gives you voice. It gives you a platform to speak on. Because I am here speaking on this because of the book of Ruth. Somebody's short story, short memoir that was captured in writing. So I want to encourage you to pen it to win it and write short books. Coming up next week, we're going to be doing another short book study. And yes, it's going to come from the Bible. I'm not only going to do biblical books, but we're going to be looking at the book of Habakkuk. So Ruth was a 3-chapter book. We're going to be looking at the book of Habakkuk next week. That is perhaps going to be a 3-part series, but I'm going to have a guest. We're going to feature the author of Dare to Ask, Garfield Robinson. He'll be joining me for a discussion on the book of Habakkuk. There are about 20 questions that Habakkuk asked or raised in that book that are still relevant today. And Garfield wrote a book called Dare to Ask, 35 questions asked in scripture that still matter today. And some of the questions Habakkuk asked still matter today. So we're going to look at Garfield's book, Dare to Ask, as well. And that's a relatively, Garfield's book is not exactly short like the book of Ruth. I think his book is about 200 pages. And but we're going to discuss the short book of Habakkuk. So spread the word. Let me know if any insights that I shared about the book of Ruth today resonated with you. Put the feedback in the comments and let me know if you're excited about writing a short book based on what you've heard from the book of Ruth and today. Remember, it is bank over rank. It is purpose over prestige. And you want to write little but talawa books. So we're just shifting the things there in publishing. So thank you for joining me. What was your favorite episode of the 9-part series with the book of Ruth? Let me know in the comments as well. And spread the word and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers real fast. So remember, change the way you think so you can change the way you live. And as we do these studies, our hope is that you will live out your learning. Finally, Tavada, until next time.